Zero.
Hi guys, we're group 9, and we did our presentation on the Caldor fire. I'm Sophie Rodriguez.
I'm Cassandra Mays.
I'm Seiji Yamaguchi.
I'm Avery Hoyt.
I'm Jackson Metcalf.
So, where the fire occurred, this fire occurred across 3 counties in total. It was the El Dorado County, the Alpine County, and the Amador County. It began on August 14th, 2021 at about 7 p.m. And this fire was active for about 68 days, and then it was fully contained on October 21st at 2021, about 8 a.m. And then this fire just burned across several ecosystems near Lake Tahoe, including the Alpine area and all that.
The cause of this fire, based on the research that I found, it was saying that there was lots of different human activities that it was pretty much involved a man and his son, who I believed were hunting, and a projectile from a firearm started this fire. It was started near Little Mountain between Omo Ranch and the Grizzly Flats. The precise nature of the ignition source is unknown, but two men were taken into custody because it was most likely that it was a projectile discharged from a firearm which struck an object, and that just lit it up.
So there were many agencies that responded to this fire. Granted, it was a very large fire. So um, I want to say a week after the start of the fire, the federal government issued federal funds to have firefighters aid in um, the firefighting of all of it. So they sent United States Forest Service crews there from El Dorado National Forest and the Lake Tahoe Basin Management Unit. And then on top of that, there was CAL FIRE agencies that responded from throughout the state. So that came from the California Department of Forestry and Fire Protection. And then there was also from the governor's office, Cal OES Fire, which is the Office of Emergency. Um, there is also California special districts that helped. So these are local government agencies that are kind of founded and formed and governed by local residents, and they establish or enhance essential infrastructure in their communities. So many uh, fire protection special districts came from Pioneer, Mosquito, Garden Valley, Lake Valley, Georgetown, a few more. The sheriff's office from both El Dorado and Amador counties came, as well as El Dorado County Fire Department. And then, of course, there were other agencies such as CHP, Caltrans, directing traffic, helping with roads. Even PG&E, Verizon, AT&T uh, responded to the fire, as well as medical services. And then, of course, you need water resource agencies. So the State Water Resources Control Board came, as well as the El Dorado Irrigation District. So what drove the fire to be so bad? Ultimately, it was the wind. So on on the day it started, the fire was relatively mild, and they didn't expect it to really take off as quick as it did. But a couple of days later, on August 16th, high winds just spread up, and they rapidly drove the fire, and it caused that initial takeoff. And then on August 27th, there was a huge wind change, and it started driving the fire east towards the Lake Tahoe Basin and South Lake Tahoe. On top of that, there were a lot of high fuel loads in the whole region. Some regions that the Caldor fire reached had little to no fire history since the 1940s, meaning there was a ton of fuel on the forest floor that was extremely dry and extremely ready to burn. And it was just the perfect combination of wind fuel and that drought caused by climate change that ultimately drove the fire. This area had been experiencing long periods of drought, and because of that, there was already a lot of fuel, but not only that, but the fuel was very dry. And then the fire behavior of the Caldor fire ultimately drove the entire fire itself as well. Um, the Caldor fire grew to be so strong that it started to create its own weather and wind patterns. And because of that, it created up to 100-foot flames that didn't allow firefighters or helicopters to come close to attack the fire because it was just simply too dangerous.
The impacts of the communities that were affected by the Caldor fire. Ultimately, the fire burned 221,000 acres of land, which is very large, and it also burned over 1,000 structures. The fire caused ash to fall into the lake, which obscured the sunlight and affected the water quality. The ash contained nutrients like phosphorus and nitrogen that could help algae grow. In terms of water quality, fire burns like the ground cover, so it increases sedimentation, like going into the water, so decreasing water quality. Um, there was also increased awareness of wildlife or wildfires' significance, and people are starting to make policies to help reduce the risk of intense wildfires like the Caldor fire. Ultimately, it shows people and the public what's at risk for California's carbon storages, water quality, and regional biodiversity.
So the cost of the Caldor fire, in total, there was 21 casualties due to this fire. Most of them were firefighters, which is very unfortunate. But there was also an additional 18 people injured in the fire who ended up in ER because of their injuries. And this fire burned and destroyed about 1,003 structures and damaged 81 additional structures. And most of these structures were in the Grizzly Flats area, and two-thirds of that community was completely destroyed and burned to the ground. This wildfire in total burned about 221,835 acres of land, and it was estimated that the fire cost about $268 million in damage.
The policies that were changed or slash impacted by the fire, enhanced firefighting resources. The California Department of Forestry and Fire Protection and federal agencies have increased investments in firefighting resources. This pretty much means that they're gonna go out of their way to have more aircrafts that can be built and used to fight firefighters within like the Sierra Nevadas where the Caldor fire happened, just going out of their way to make sure that they can actually hire more people for Cal Fire because it is a rugging and drying job. Um, and especially in regards to investing in technology where they would be able to prevent these fires from happening with early fire detection technology and monitoring. In regards to insurance and financial support, a bunch of the insurance policies had to be changed in order to cover the wildfire risks that were implemented. Um, Homes in high risk areas just had to be adjusted because of specific premium areas. And for the financial support and recovery programs for fire victims, those had to be enhanced because without these insurance programs and without financial support, a lot of these fire victims don't have a place to go. They don't have people that they can rely on to give them money or shelter. So, this is just a small portion of what policies were changed impacted by the Caldor fire, but there's a lot more that was changed.
So, what sort of prevention measures could have helped to reduce the impact of the fire? There are some different categories about what could have helped it in different ways. As far as forest management, there could have been controlled burns, which would burn away a lot of the fuels that had been left on the forest ground, along with the denseness of the forest, so that it couldn't spread up the trees and get caught by the wind to go for other places. So, controlled burns are sometimes not widely accepted because people fear them. So it could have first come in with mechanical thinning, which is people going through, or machines to thin out the land and removing it from the area, not just taking down the underbrush, but also taking it out. There would also be, they could have also tried grazing, which is bringing in different kinds of livestock to graze on the grounds to again eat up the fuels that had been accumulated on the ground in this forest, so that the vegetation is kept in check. As far as community and structural measures that could have been taken, there are, if buildings and structures could have been built with more fire resistant building materials, they were less likely that they could have caught on fire. The flame point at which the heat, the surrounding vapors catch things on fire would have been higher, so that it would have taken a lot more intensity of heat to burn these buildings. There could have also been stricter landscaping regulations, which kind of pairs with management of fuel surrounding properties on the WUI, the wildlife urban interface. There are specific zones, the 0, 1st, and 2nd zones, where there shouldn't have been plants going up the sides of buildings. All brush should have been cleared out in that 30-foot range, especially in the 30-foot range, and also maintained in the 100-foot range, which is the 2nd zone. And these home properties would have been able to create a more defensible space when they cleared the flammable vegetation and maintained their plants by watering and making sure everything was moist and not dried out and ready to burn. That kind of the community and structural measures also kind of goes along with the policy and community involvement, which has a lot to do with education, educating the community on fire safety, having fire safety plans, and also teaching them how to maintain their properties so that their structures won't catch on fire. The zoning and building codes is just another implement to help prevent fires of structures, which is using the fire resistant materials. And the community safety plans is not only to prevent fires, but also to make sure everyone has a accurate evacuation plan where they can leave safely. And that is our presentation, and here we're excited.